and I would vote for Biden even if he was dead.
Because in 3-4 days, we will have no fuel anymore in Gaza.
One of the peak cases of Trump derangement syndrome aired over the weekend. Another violent insurrection at the Capitol. Gaza is about to run out of food, fuel, and power, and also some things you might not like, including the GOP clown show that is existing around the Speaker of the House. All that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Jobob, Daily Caller Live. Start right now.
Go! Might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually her name, Jobob.
Live from the dingy bunker that is completely, totally, and utterly cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in on today. It is Monday, October 24th, the year of our Lord 2023. 24th? 23rd, year of our Lord 2023. So glad you could join us. Had a couple days. We're traveling, doing a bunch of stuff. Haven't seen you in a little while. So appreciate you sticking around, tuning in. A lot of stuff to get to. Some interesting developments around varying arguments that I feel like need to be addressed. But before we get to that, I'm going to get to this. I think this was, on Meet the Press, the most Trump derangement syndrome thing I think I've ever heard any Trump derangement person say. They were doing a panel. This is Meet the Press. They were doing a panel on voters in Pennsylvania. By panel, I mean like a round table with like 4 other people. Lissa Welker, I think the new host, I keep forgetting her name, was asking, what is it going to take for you to vote this way or that way? And one of the guys, and this is not a very long clip, said, I think the most Trump deranged syndrome thing anybody has said, or at least that I've heard in a while. And then at the very end of the clip, you're going to hear something that I think is going to be interesting to everybody. But I do want to play this clip without further ado. The most severe case of Trump derangement syndrome. Watch this.
Is there any chance you would stay at home on Election Day?
No. I love American democracy too much that Biden and Trump, if it's a Biden and Trump race, then I would vote for Biden even if he was dead.
No chance I'd stay home. I've never.
And I'm a Republican.
So that guy says, I'm a Republican, and I'd vote for Biden even if he was dead, if he were running against Donald Trump. Now, a couple things. That seems to be the most likely case, Biden v. Trump round 2. But I can't help but wonder what it actually is from a policy standpoint. Look, and I will agree probably with this dude that Trump stuck his foot in his mouth a lot. And I don't think there are really many people that disagree with that. Even the most ardent MAGA people that show up with their American flag hats and their Donald Trump Make America Great Again t-shirts and their flags with his mugshot on it, even those people, nothing wrong with those people. I'm just saying, even those people would probably say, there were a couple times where I feel like maybe he shouldn't have said something that he said. I think the entire country/planet can agree that sometimes Donald Trump maybe takes it a little bit too far in terms of how he articulates a situation. And also, the policies under the previous president were objectively better for everyone. The media obviously treated him incredibly unfair, but just from a policy standpoint, was your life easier and better the previous 4 years or this current 4 years? And if you say that, well, from a policy standpoint, I would vote for the guy who is dead over the guy who was there before, makes the most severe case of Trump derangement syndrome. Wow, some of the comments, a lot of emojis in the comment section again today that I think are interesting. Interesting. Some more people with the saying yes on the Biden train, even if Trump is running. Again, I would remind people that even though there are strong personalities in the political spectrum, what really matters at the end of the day is policy. Personality doesn't and shouldn't matter at all. Unfortunately, we're in a case that personality does matter, and people don't like Donald Trump's personality. But at the end of the day, whether or not he's sending off mean tweets about Rosie O'Donnell at 3 a.m. doesn't affect your wallet. It doesn't affect your household bottom line. It doesn't affect the taxes that you pay. It doesn't affect the safety in your neighborhood. What actually matters is policy. So at the end of the day, that's all you should be voting on, and not because you think the guy is mean. But anyways, I think this is the most severe case of TDS that exists, or at least that I've heard of. But a lot of people, let's see, in the comments say, wow, now there's battles going on in the comments section. Absolutely no, Biden, Trump is my president. We need Trump back now. Biden has no policy. Yeah, correct. But wow, the tug of war game that is played in the comment section is always fascinating to me. Let's see. Before we get to more GOP stuff, because I guess we're trashing the GOP a lot today because of their freaking clown show in the speakership, and we'll get to that in a second, because I do want to get to this, because I feel like today's show is set up to be the most not playing both sides of the fence. I don't even think that really encompasses what we're doing here. Entailing the average American, I think, that thinks some stuff on the lefty side is the most insane and crazy thing that you can think of. And also, the Republicans are making asses of themselves. Both things can be true at one time. Just that's possible. But I wanted to cover this. This happened last week, I think Friday, but we weren't here. We were traveling from somewhere to someplace. Another insurrection happened in the Capitol when pro-Palestinian people, protesters, whatever you want to call them, rioters, invaded the Capitol rotunda and started chanting. Actually, I don't know if this technically is the Capitol rotunda. It's one of the rotundas. What is rotundi? What's the plural of rotunda? Anyways, I'm going to play this clip, and this is shouldn't be shocking or surprising. It's the same thing that the crazy radical feminists did when they were protesting Brett Kavanaugh's election. They invaded and stormed the Capitol. And then this is an invasion and the storming of the Capitol, which I can only imagine should also be called another insurrection. Watch this. Check it out. I don't want to sound like a broken record here and say things that I feel like I've been saying since the attack on October 7th. But I think the lefty side of the aisle has abolished one of their biggest talking points with all of this pro-Palestine ceasefire, Israel doesn't get to defend themselves rhetoric that they've got going on. So one of the biggest things that lefties, especially younger lefties, had been doing on college campuses is facilitating and fostering safe places, because people need to be safe, because speech is violence. And saying that if you have to endure any sort of person that disagrees with you, you need to be protected, because their speech and their words against your opinions are violence, and you need to be protected in a safe space. And also, actual violence as committed by Hamas, the atrocities that happened again on October 7th, that's fine. We're going to go ahead and be in support of that. And yes, I understand, save the comments, I understand that not every Palestinian is a Hamas radical. I know. But also, Hamas did get elected, and even recent polls would show you that the majority of people who live in Gaza still support Hamas. So, if you're talking about the whole Free Palestine movement without any real historical context of the region as a whole, one, can I buy some of your time? How do you have the time to go sit there and invade the Capitol day after day and protest in the streets and all that sort of stuff? How do you have the time to do that? And also, I think you have a pretty surfacey level understanding of the world and how it works. AOC has been on pretty much every talk show over the last week saying, we need a ceasefire, we need a ceasefire. Retaliation is not... That's another term that I feel like is being used. Retaliation and what is it? Collective justice, those two terms. One, I don't think any military action that Israel takes is retaliation necessarily. Retaliation, in my view of it, sounds like a vengeance-filled word. Like you need to get back at someone or some group simply for the sake of getting back at them. In my view of how the world works, that is not what Israel would be doing. Any war tactic carried out would be done not, well, again, maybe you can have two objectives here. But the main objective is not vengeance. The main objective would be protecting the future of their country. Going into the northern part of Gaza, and when this ground invasion actually does start and does happen, if it does in fact happen, the main point isn't going to be vengeance and avenging this and that and retaliation. No, it's going to be rooting out future threats, because that's what they need to do to stay alive. And to say that it's specifically vengeance and it's collective justice and they're just big meanies for doing it is an R-worded response. And you can figure out what that means on your own. But that being said, there were last week at the end of the week, actually, this happened at the beginning of the week, but there's been an update to this particular story. Are you hip to the story about the Cornell professor, guy by the name of Russell Rickerson, if I remember his name right? The guy who said this live to a crowd on video and is beginning a ton of heat for it. Watch this.
It was exhilarating. It was exhilarating. It was energizing. And if they weren't exhilarated by this challenge to the monopoly of violence, by this shifting of the balance of power, then they would not be human. I was exhilarated.
Okay, so that's a professor at Cornell saying that he was exhilarated watching Hamas go and murder babies and rape women, which is makes him, a bad person. But that being said, he has update on the story. That happened, I think, October 15th. He has not been fired by the university, interestingly enough, which, holy cow. Like, what? If, and I think this would be a terrible thing if somebody actually said this, if somebody replaced the situation of Hamas beheading babies and raping women and killing people indiscriminately to Derek Chauvin and George Floyd, which there's a George Floyd story that we should get to. Maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow if we're able to get on. If you were to replace those two situations and somebody were out in a crowd speaking publicly into a microphone on video for the entire online media to see, I was exhilarated watching George Floyd under that cop's knee, you would be fired from any job that you had immediately, and deservedly so. Because that would be an insane position to take. That was like an exhilarating feeling for you. And yet, if you're a Cornell professor and you're on the lefty side of the political spectrum, you could say, oh, it was exhilarating watching Hamas go in and murder people indiscriminately. That was exhilarating for me. And the university that he works at will still take no stance. Now, the update on this story is that as of yesterday, this professor has taken a leave of absence, which is a whole other story in and of itself. If you say something that crazy and it gets the national headlines that this guy has gotten, and you're able to take a leave of absence, something is terribly wrong with the system in which you occupy. But holy cow. Some of the comments here are kind of interesting, talking about what's going on in Israel, Gaza, all that sort of stuff. So maybe we'll get to those in a couple seconds. But last thing on Israel, Gaza is this, and I've been saying this for, I don't know, since October 10th, when we kind of like got back on the air after all of this. Watch this. This is another guy, I think, on Face the Nation, UN dude, talking about, well, Gaza is going to run out of food, water, and power in the next couple days. Check this out.
And you are running short on fuel now.
Today, I issued a statement, an alarm, because in 3-4 days, we will have no fuel anymore in Gaza. And what does it mean? No fuel, no water, no bakery, no running a hospital. But beyond that, that means also there will be no humanitarian operation. We need fuel to move the trucks to reach the people in need.
Okay. Here's something that Face the Nation did not mention, or at least to my knowledge did not mention. Didn't watch the entire show, but here's something that a bunch of people who are clamoring about, well, they're going to run out of food and power and water and all of these things because the big me in Israel is cutting off their food supply and water supply. Oh no! All the people that are making the case, they're trying to solve this through a humanitarian lens. Simple solution. Israel has said as much. Give us back all the hostages. There's still, what, over 200 over there? Nobody knows how many hostages there are over there. There's a couple hundred Americans in Gaza right now that Hamas supposedly, according to the news outlets, are not letting leave Gaza through the Rafah border or otherwise. But bottom line, at the end of the day, there are still a bunch of hostages there. And if they want the food, water, and power turned back on, go ahead and release the hostages. Simple as that. So when people are on news and TV, and AOC is on CNN talking about the horrible, horrible Israelis cutting off water, and doesn't mention, yeah, hey, Hamas, go ahead and give the hostages back, and maybe you'll get your food, water, and power back. Those people are making incredibly disingenuous arguments. If you don't mention that particular factoid, you've got a big problem with how you see the world. But anyways, I wanted to get to this. This is, I'm going to prepare you right now. This is going to anger some of you. I even said that in the Chiron. Y'all going to be mad, but this is Mitch McConnell. I know a lot of people not big fans of Mitch McConnell. Think he's an entrenched establishment person, which we'll talk about in a second, because that term, I think, is... Pause that really quick. Mitch McConnell, we know a lot of you don't like, and a lot of you are not going to like this particularly. But I feel like it needs to be said in today's modern era. Mitch McConnell went on, what was this, Face the Nation, and was talking about aid to Ukraine and military aid around the world. I know there's a lot of people that say no more money to Ukraine, including myself in a lot of ways, but there are some things to consider when you talk about aid going to other countries around the world. I want you to watch this, and we will discuss on the other side. Check it out.
It is all interconnected.
And you've said that you believe there is enough oversight of aid to Ukraine. Why hasn't that persuaded some members of the Republican caucus?
If you look at the Ukraine assistance, let's talk about where the money is really going. A significant portion of it's being spent in the United States, in 38 different states, replacing the weapons that we sent to Ukraine with more modern weapons. So we're rebuilding our industrial base.
That's what President Biden's seeking to do.
It's correct. No Americans are getting killed in Ukraine. We're rebuilding our industrial base. The Ukrainians are destroying the army of one of our biggest rivals. I have a hard time finding anything wrong with that. I think it's wonderful.
I don't know why that went black there. But yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be upset about that. But at the same time, there are some points to be made there by Mitch McConnell, who is big on sending more money to Ukraine. I've mentioned that a couple times of like, hey, just remember when we're sending weapons there, those weapons are being manufactured in a lot of ways in our country, and they're going to, I understand it's taxpayer dollars, I get it, but it's also going to factory workers in this country. And there's a comment there saying that, whoa, well, we're supposed to be in support of bolstering Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and Boeing's bottom line. Like, well, not really. Those people and those companies employ Americans, and it's not the worst thing that they're getting more money to revamp our military weapons systems and also using American weapons to debilitate one of America's biggest allies. Again, I wouldn't be so excited about it if I were Mitch McConnell saying it's wonderful, but I get the point. And the thing that I'm driving at here is that I've noticed that we have two very, very hard sides on U.S. aid and whether or not the United States is the world's peacekeeper. In a lot of ways, I'm a big time let's stay out of as much as we possibly can. Let's not go barging in, guns a-blazing to various countries around the world, even though we do. I'm much more of a hands-off approach from the United States military. Having said that, I also understand, and I think we all should understand, that the world is a better place with the United States in it. And if that means making sure the shipping lanes are open, making sure that, I don't know, the world doesn't devolve into military chaos and eventually a World War III situation, I think that is a good thing. And what I'm saying ultimately is there has to be some gradation between the George Bush, Dick Cheney, anytime somebody does anything bad to us, we're going in, guns blazing, no matter what. And the entirely isolationist part, there needs to be conversation happening in the middle. Because what I don't see currently is anybody saying, look, let's try to not get involved in really anything that we don't need to get involved in. And also make sure through whatever means we have available to us that the world doesn't devolve into chaos. There's nobody seemingly representing that middle section of where I think most Americans actually are. Like there's this huge isolationist component that says no more money here, absolutely none whatsoever. And then there's this party over here that says, like, get them whatever you want, anything they want, take it. Why can't there be some sort of middle ground where, all right, let's very cautiously use our resources in places that we think would be strategically beneficial for the American people and not just go in anywhere at any point in any time for any reason. And also, we do need to make sure, as the most powerful nation in the world and the biggest economy on the planet, we do need to make sure that threats around the world don't trace its way back to the homeland. And if that needs military intervention in some way, shape, or form, so be it. Anyways, that I had to get that off my chest because I feel like there's so much not extreme. I don't even want to say extreme, but one hardline side or the other hardline side, and there's nobody in the middle saying, "Can we be somewhere in between both of those things?" But again, that only happens if people are paying attention to what's going on, which is what has led us to this. A live look into the GOP speaker race. As you can tell, this is the Hall of Congress the floor of Congress filled with clowns, because what's currently happening in the GOP over the speakership is a clown show. I would say it was a clown show if that weren't so insulting to clowns. I think I mentioned this at the time when Kevin McCarthy was ousted by Matt Gaetz. All of the things that Matt Gaetz was saying, I agreed with 100%. The government is taking advantage of the American people. The taxpayers are being completely disregarded and disrespected. And the The voters and the taxpayers need to take the country back in a direction that it was always meant to go. And also, this is not how you do it. If you want a mandate from the voters that says you can do this, 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 and this with really no pushback, do you know what you need to do? You need to win elections. FDR, back in the 30s and 40s, when he put in the New Deal that was supposed to restructure how the United States, and I'm not saying this is a good thing. I wasn't a big fan of the New Deal and the outcome that sprung from it. But at the time, his party had 70%, 70 to 75% in the various elections of both houses of Congress and the executive branch. If you want a mandate from the people, you have to win elections. If you want to overhaul the system and the structure that we all currently occupy and we all are currently living in, you can't have, a 4-seat majority? It just doesn't work like that. The system was designed so that compromise was necessary. And if you don't want to compromise, like I have values and beliefs that I don't want to compromise on, but you have to win elections. You can't do it in a razor thinly divided 50 seats in the Senate, 50% in the House. It's not when you make your stand. Make your stand when you have an overwhelming majority because you won elections. And if the only way that you get there is to win elections, stunts like this, making the GOP look dumb, is not how you do it. Jim Jordan, tried 3 times to get the speakership role after Steve Scalise tried. Now Byron Donalds is putting his hat in the ring. And look, I talked with Byron Donalds. I love the guy. He's fantastic. But also, what are we doing here in terms of trying to function as a system? And I guess last esoteric thought, I don't even know if that's the right word to describe this, but there's a lot of people talking about drain the swamp. I am all on board with draining the swamp. But draining the swamp and toppling the system are 2 different things. The United States government structure and system as a whole, in the way that it was designed to work, is a brilliant way of self-governance. I am not pro changing the system. I am pro draining the swamp and the people that take advantage of the system, meaning Congress people, bureaucrats, elected officials, or otherwise. All of those people are the swamp and they should be ridded of in our system. That doesn't mean that toppling the system as a whole is a good idea. You can think both things at the same time. And then I guess if you're wondering and you want a solution as to, well, how do you drain the swamp without toppling the system? People have to be more engaged. I guarantee you, if a bigger percentage of Americans were engaged in what's going on in their own self-governance, we wouldn't have most of these problems. We would have people, politicians specifically, being held accountable for the things they did, again, if people paid attention. The problem is, and this has been from the start of my commentary career, been my biggest thing that I've been advocating for, is people freaking paying attention. The first show that I did was called Barely Paying Attention. Because if more people are paying attention, the politicians don't get to get all swampy making backroom deals that nobody pays attention to and nobody cares about. And therefore, they get held accountable by the people that they were put in office to represent. And if they're held accountable by the people put in office to represent, they won't become swamp-like creatures because they wouldn't be able to. And if they're not swamp-like creatures, there's no swamp to drain. If there's no swamp to drain, then we have a system set forth by the Founding Fathers that works better than any other system on the planet. But the problem is the voters are disengaged, they don't pay attention, and they have no idea what's going on, which leads us to situations like this. where you have a fraction of the population paying attention, a fraction of the population loves this whole idea of, well, we have to stand our ground right now, when in reality, you get to stand your ground way more if you win elections, and this stuff is not helping people win elections. I appreciate all of you that stayed on during that screed, because I feel like that was wow. We're talking deep theory here, not theory, deep thoughts here of how the system should work, and not trying to get pulled into the day-to-day squabble of Kevin McCarthy nominated Jim Jordan, called him a great legislator, even though Jim Jordan has never actually passed a piece of legislation. All of that doesn't freaking matter if voters paid attention. If it wasn't about getting voter turnout instead of changing hearts and minds, we would have a much more functioning system that didn't have really extremes on either side. But because people don't pay attention, the polarizing sides are pulling further apart, and that's the direction, the more division we are going to have in Congress and in governance as a whole. But anyways, I digress. Appreciate you sticking around, tuning in. We'll cap it off there. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media platforms. Just type in JOBOB pretty much anywhere. You'll be able to find me on any of the social media platforms. We will be in what's going on? We'll be in Twin Falls, Idaho, November 17th for a comedy show, and then November 18th we'll be in Blackfoot, Idaho, which is driving distance from Pocatello and Idaho Falls. In case you live in those areas and you want to come see the Star Spangled Banner comedy tour, you can get tickets by clicking on one of the links anywhere. Pretty much going anywhere that has my name, you'll be able to find tickets, or shoot us a DM on any of the social media platforms. We'll be able to direct you in that way. Also, this Wednesday, what's today? To Monday? Yeah, Wednesday. It's tour season and things are chaotic. This Wednesday, I will be at the University of New York, Buffalo? The University of Buffalo? Sorry, I don't know. We'll be in Buffalo with Candace Owens at the TPSA Live Free Tour on Wednesday. Side note, not that any of you care about this, my wife and daughter are coming to this one, so we are getting on a plane in a couple hours here, and it's going to be her first flight, which is super exciting and also a little bit terrifying. So if you have any suggestions on how do you handle an infant, a 2.5-month-old on a plane, would love to hear those in the comments section at some point. But yeah, we'll be with Candace Owens on Wednesday, and then got the comedy shows coming up. Also, Charlie Kirk is in at UCLA November 9th. So anyways, if you want any of those information, any of that, find me on social media. We'll get the information to you. But that'll do it for us today. I appreciate you sticking around, tuning in. We'll see you. We might see you tomorrow. I don't know. This is another crazy travel week, so we might not see each other again until Friday. Who knows? But whenever we see you, God bless America.